Welcome back to Ninetail Hobbies, and in this video going to be participating in a new YouTube Brain Trust Community Challenge. This one is Heroes versus Villains. A couple of us got together and kind of threw back ideas back and forth about different types of hero and villain ideas, and then we paired off into groups, and I'm painting with We Paint Minis. We did a Iron Fist Venom challenge, really cool. His is excellent. But other people that participated are the Maniacal Mini, Origin Painting, Tabletop Role-Playing Gaze, Conquest Creation, and Raqrex Art. And I'll put all their links in the description down below. But yeah, there's some brilliant ones that have been painted in this, and I'm super excited to have worked with all of these people. So definitely check everything out. But we also had the idea of doing a narration in the video. Instead of talking about how we're painting and what we're painting and everything, we were asked to kind of write a short story almost as to how our character would defeat the other one, and it was a whole lot of fun. So it's a little bit different. I really enjoyed the story that I ended up writing, and I still, leave the names of the paints down at the bottom that I'm using going through. And this painting that I did is really hyper stylized, very different from what you normally see with minis. I went with more of a comic book sketch style. If anybody's read the Matt Fraction Iron Fist run, that was a huge inspiration for this. It's very loose, and I actually really recommend that if you're in a rut of painting, try something like this. Try something a little looser, because it was the most fun I've had painting in a bit. It was just very free, and I didn't have to worry about anything except knowing where to place my highlights and shadows and everything. But anyway, check it out. It was a lot of fun. Let's get painting. Daniel Rand, CEO of Rand Enterprises, Iron Fist, Immortal Weapon, Defender of Kung Lung, Slayer of Xiao Lao the Undying, Hero for Hire. Despite all of his lofty positions, Danny has always had a habit of keeping his feet firmly planted on the ground, specifically on the streets of New York. It was in the dark alleys and questionable locales that he first began to hear people talking about a dark shape moving, victims being beaten in malicious and vicious ways, most only barely surviving, and then with all likelihood of long-term damage. With all of his years of training, and even more experience, he knew the signs of something beyond normal in the works. After a night of preparation, he centered himself with katas and meditation. The setting of the sun the following day marked the beginning of the hunt. While Danny was no expert tracker, he could follow the signs that his information had garnered for him easily enough. Once he had found a tangible trace of his prey's form, in this case a large puddle of drool, gross, it was simply a matter of following the flow of chi. The trail led Danny through multiple city blocks and all the way to the edge of Hell's Kitchen. Rounding a corner, Danny found himself at the back of a crowd of a dozen people. Somewhere within this group of bodies, Danny knew he would find his quarry. He breathed, letting the air from his lungs be empowered with his ever-flowing energy. It flitted and flowed to the center of the group. It pointed to a mountain of a man. Blonde hair, chiseled features, and enough muscle to make even Luke Cage pause. There was an uneasy feeling this man exuded, something extra, something malicious. Danny had not felt anything like this since his escape from the 8th city's wholly corrupted residence. Danny gave a sharp whistle that garnered the attention of everyone present. The large man was the last to turn. "Bad news, friend. Your days of putting others in the hospital are over. Now, come along peacefully so that none of these nice folks get hurt." okay? A mad gleam entered the man's eyes, and a rictus grin scarred his face.
We don't like being followed, and no one tells us what to do.
A strange, undulating mass began to cover his body, the head being last, and there, staring at Danny, was the massive, twisted version of one of his longtime friends. A jagged stabbing of white on black in the mockery of a spider. Crooked jags of teeth spilled from a too large mouth. The already large frame of Eddie Brock was expanded further by a symbiote. Danny had never had any run-ins with him before, but he had heard plenty of stories. "Venom," he said flatly. "How did I know this wasn't going to be easy?" The crowd had quickly dispersed as soon as the transformation began. Now, in front of Danny, instead of a 6'5", 250-pound muscle man, was a 7 to 8 foot mass that must have weighed at least half a ton, or at least that's how it looked to him. He barely had time to take a stance before an onslaught of blows was delivered his way. Only years of training that had become instinct saved him from his head being crushed against the pavement. Venom's breath miasmaed around him as close as the blows. A haymaker thrown presented an opening. Danny hit Venom with Centipede's 100 candles, quickly followed by sun-setting kick, and for good measure, a good, solid right hook. Danny took a measured step back, expecting, or at least hoping, for the monster to fall. It turned, drool flinking, seemingly untouched, it charged. "Oh, come on, at least look like it might have hurt a little," Danny grunted out as he dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a blow that took out a large chunk of wall nearby. This was getting serious. Danny had talked to Peter about Venom more than once. It was just something that you did in the hero biz. Compare and contrast your adversaries, talk about their strengths and weaknesses, and retell the stories that your buddies have heard 5 times already, maybe with just a little embellishment here or there. The fight continued on, down the street and into a construction site that had shut down for the day. It was going to be one of those posh loft apartments that didn't really fit into the neighborhood they were placed in hopes that the developer would be able to buy other buildings and make a trend in the area. Danny misstepped ever so slightly on a tangle of wires, and that was all the opening Venom needed to land a solid blow. Danny, the Iron Fist, went flying. Over the years, he had taken all kinds of hits. This one easily ranked in the top 10. He would have continued sailing for another 20 feet if a wall had not been there to stop his flight midway through. The air exploded from his lungs and he was pretty sure he felt a pop in his side. By the time he had cleared his head enough, Danny was lifted off of his feet. Venom's worm of a tongue swayed and dripped in Danny's face.
"We think that this will be a good message for the Spider-Man. Your mangled corpse hung up for him to see."
"Oh, just don't touch the face, all right?" Danny coughed with a small trickle of blood escaping from between his lips.
"No promises."
The banter in close proximity had bought Danny the time that he needed. Venom's large bulk had obscured the glow that had begun in Danny's fist. As Venom pulled back, ready to unleash their full strength into Danny, the Iron Fist, powered by his namesake, gave a well-practiced and precise uppercut into the dark creature's distended jaw. The blow was enough to send even its considerable bulk flying onto its back. Danny shakily got to his feet. And that's how it's done." No sooner had he said this than Venom began to rise. "Oh, come on," he raged. Danny saw that as Venom got to his feet, His hit had blown a hole in the symbiote down to Brock. Danny's mind raced. What had Peter said about beating Venom before? Sound, that was his weakness. In the 3 seconds it had taken Danny to search his memory, his form was overshadowed by Venom's bulk.
Not enough,
he said, murder burning in his eyes. Oh, that's not all my trick, Scoopy. Once again, Danny called forth the ocean of energy from Xiao Lao, the dragon that had gave him his powers. He recalled the myriad of techniques he was still learning from the Book of the Iron Fists, but one stood out in his moment of need. Seeing energy flowing into both of Iron Fist's hands, Venom lunged forward for a killing blow, but Danny was not aiming to strike the creature. Before Venom could cover the distance, Danny slammed one hand into the other, one a fist, the other cupped to receive it. The result was the equivalent of a small sonic boom. The originator of this technique, the 15th Iron Fist, had fashioned it to resemble a chanting bell in the extreme, and as such it was repeatable in rapid succession. The waves of sonic disruption began to almost immediately tear the symbiote from Brock's form.
No, a terrible sound.
Danny simply sat, a calm eye in a terrible storm, smashing his fist into open hand over and over. Venom simply couldn't stand being in any proximity to the sonic assault and quickly fled. Danny watched with mixed emotions as the villain escaped. Live to fight another day, he said in a grimace of pain.